Welcome to the K-Files. Today we are going right back into the darkness with an investigation into Irresistible. Welcome back to the Lush Basement Office. We are talking about one of the scariest monsters in all of X-Files today, Donnie Pfaster in Irresistible. I'm your host, Katie.
And I'm your co-host, Griselda, and we're coming at you from HollywoodRedux.com.
Yes. Let's get into it.
Okay,
peel back the dark layers of the onion.
Man, this was so weird.
Well, we've been doing serial killers on the show.
This is true. It's been a nice little theme happening.
We took a break for Valentine's Day.
Yeah, it was a nice episode, so thank you for that one, because you didn't warn me about this one, so I guess.
Welcome back to the real X-Files. We're talking about death fetishists who like to take clippings from the dead. God. Yeah. No, I mean, it's one of the darker, I think, serial killers, one of the darker killers on the show, created by Chris Carter himself, from the messed up mind of Chris Carter himself. We did Millennium not too long ago on the show.
We did.
And I tried to tell you at that time that Millennium was way darker than anything on the X-Files.
No.
And truthfully, the X-Files goes down some dark alleyways.
You lied. That's what happened. No, dude.
Sometimes in Minneapolis.
You think you're prepared for the episode, but you're not, man.
What I love is that Mulder gets Scully to go on this case under the auspices of, investigation. But he knew all along that it was a death fetishist, not something supernatural, but a human killer. And he only wanted to go to this football game. The whole thing, this whole case, was because Mulder wanted to take Scully to a football game. So in early days, this was like this was like a date. I mean, like, oh my God. And there's another episode where they eat like barbecue chicken and Scully like wipes the sauce off his face. I mean, those early days, we'll take it. It's hot. So I think what is the most scary about the Donnie Pfaster character. Donnie Pfaster is a character who is characterized on the show. Yeah, Donnie Pfaster. He's characterized on the show as a demon. He's actually called a demon. Mulder says, somebody calls him, oh, this is a human doing this. I think the other police officer or whatever says, oh, this is a human doing this. And Mulder's like, if you want to call him that. Like, Mulder considers him something else, not even human at this point. And Scully, I think, really hits the nail on the head. Scully, most of all, understands this because the monster that Donnie Pfaster is a representation of what Scully calls, what they call on the show, a dehumanizing hatred of women. A hatred of women so vicious that it actually breaks women down into these parts where Scully directly says it. He's, preying on the living in order to scavenge from the dead. Like, this is someone who's so backward in his values that he's killing people in order to take their dead parts. Like, the balance is way, way off with somebody like this, with a human being like this. And so that's the monster that Donnie is essentially that, like, hatred of women, that dehumanizing hatred of women that, like, picks them apart down to tiny parts.
Here's my question. Was he, did he actually end up taking other body parts? It seemed like it was just the hair, right?
He cuts hair. He takes fingernails.
Okay.
He was cutting off their fingers and putting them in his freezer with his peas and carrots, as Mulder says.
Yeah.
No, there's lots of
dude,
stuff
if you just wanted to,
get into.
Play with, women's hair and wash their hair, it's called a beauty salon, bro.
No, he's a death fetishist, though. That's why you see he had set up, when he had first started planning on killing, he set up that whole elaborate bedroom that looked like a funeral. So he's
that doesn't make sense
the circumstances for himself.
That doesn't make sense to me.
That's what floats his boat. That's what gets him off.
Because he's a clean freak, right? He's a clean freak, likes to prepare baths and stuff for women, which it's kind of nice in a way, thoughtful, but very creepy. And he goes after dead body parts, like the ground, dirt, and stuff. And this episode messed me up, Katie. You don't understand, dude.
I saw this for the first time. Let's see. So this was 1995. I was 10 years old when this came out. So yes, I will agree with you. This has lived in my psyche for a long time. We talk about on the show a lot. We talk about this myth story, this death of the little girl, and I think that this episode explores, one big way that the death of women, a consciousness death of women, and Scully is the face of that. Scully becomes the face of that.
Usually is.
Well, because Scully's going through something where this particular monster hits her is very scary to her. She's just been abducted earlier on in the second season. She's getting over the abduction. Her father died earlier on. So she's dealing with these traumas. But the biggest thing is that in her abduction, her pain from that, her negative emotions that stem from that are because these men who kidnapped her, who abducted her, who conducted these horrible experiments on her, took tissue from her, took ovary from her ovary. They took her eggs, like the ultimate invasion. Exactly, the ultimate invasion of a body happened to her, and it's because of this element, this dehumanizing hatred of women that allows a person to take from these people as if they were not sacred human lives. And of course Scully is like the sacred life, is like the perpetuity of life. So to her, this is anathema. This is, that someone would kill somebody just to scavenge their dead parts, to her is completely backwards, because of who she is.
And it's interesting that you say like Scully and her fear, because it's an episode that you don't really get to see much of scared Scully. Scully's usually the strongest character out of the two,
Yeah, true.
Well, she kind of has to be, because, Mulder's like, hey, aliens left and right, and Scully's like, well,
she's got to hold down
aliens plus maybe some facts. Like, let's think about it for
Scully
a second.
Has reasonable concerns.
Yeah, so this episode, like, I do agree. It's a very uncomfortable, very strong episode, especially for, again, a character that we always see who's strong, always like the leader, and it kind of breaks you down watching it a little bit.
Well, it's great. It's a great episode for her because it is a very specific episode about her overcoming this fear. So she has this fear of what it is it's a fear of being vulnerable. In the sequence with the therapist, they get to the heart of that. Where
great scene.
She's scared to be vulnerable because vulnerable bodies, vulnerable women bodies are prey for these men who would abduct them and do what they will with them. Prey for this monster, this Donnie Pfaster monster, who doesn't even care about their life, wants to murder them and then take their fingernails. So it's, Scully, so it's a very real fear for Scully, this fear of being vulnerable. And what she understands through the course of the episode is actually that to be strong, it's a beautiful quote. I'm just going to quote it. I just quote the writing that Chris Carter wrote. Conquest of fear lies in the moment of its acceptance. That's the quote that Scully writes out in her report at the end. Conquest of fear lies in the moment of its acceptance. So when she accepts through that conversation with the therapist, hey, hooray for therapy, when she accepts that about herself, that she's afraid to be vulnerable, that's when she's able to be strong. That's when she's strong. Vulnerable, she is the one who confronts. She looks into the face of Donnie Pfaster's evil, of the evil that would break women down to tiny dead parts instead of the strong people that they are, like Scully. She looks that in the face, and we'll talk about this next week because there's a continuation to the Donnie Pfaster story. There's a two-part. There's a second part, and so Scully has to face this evil a second time. But in this outing, she rises up and faces it, and justice is served. And it's one of my favorite Scully as badass moments in all the show. But then she has that beautiful moment with Mulder at the end where she's trying to do the thing that Scully does, which is like, I'm fine, and act strong because she doesn't want to be seen as vulnerable. Again. Because vulnerable bodies are prey, so she doesn't want to be vulnerable. She's a woman in a man's field trying to make it. But at the end, she's trying to, stiff up her lip and Mulder, all he has to do is just look in her eyes and she just crumbles because she, is vulnerable. She is vulnerable. So she accepts that vulnerability in Mulder's arms. We should have done this episode for Valentine's Day. I don't know why we didn't.
No.
It's actually a love story.
We'll talk about why maybe that might not be a great idea.
Other cool things, I love that Donnie Pfaster is taking a mythology class, and in the mythology class, they're talking about... He's the
creepy dude in the back!
Yeah, I know, he is. We've all had a class with that guy.
He's that guy!
And honestly, I think that
And X-Files just emphasizes it a little bit more.
No, I think they show you that on the show. People can sense that about other people when, like, Donnie Pfaster is a predator who's probably going to kill you and take your fingernails. Like, I feel like the woman senses that. Like, she senses that.
He's that guy.
But no, in the class they're talking about specifically Freud and the death wish, Freud's death drive. And I love that because this is, I think, partially a explanation for Donnie Pfaster's character. Freud had this idea about death drives, which were these parts in ourselves that instead of trying to, buoy us and bolster us and push us toward fertility and love and procreation and all the things that, continue the cycle of life, there's this other part that drives us to oblivion, that drives us to destructive tendencies. So it's this maybe perhaps a duality between the two things that keeps the earth, rotating or whatever. But I think what dear Chris Carter is trying to tell us, in including this little throwaway snippet, is that Donnie Pfaster holds up a duality. He's one side of a duality. He holds up, Scully is perhaps one side of this duality of, that things are more than the sum of their parts. And in fact, when enough faith is present, there's a combination of like faith and belief and will and like willpower. Like you can conduct miracles. Humans can make miracles. That's Scully. And then on the other side of that is like yes, and also the destruction. Like there's also that side of things on the destruction. So. Yeah, the X-Files, a little bit of Freud, we like a little Freud here. We like a little Jung. Chris Carter, it's like his reading list.
Chris Carter, man. High five, dude.
Yeah. And skillfully directed by David Nutter also, we should say, in this episode. Got to give it to him. Very scary, lots of dark stuff. Mark Snow, I think, outdid himself on this score because when, there are more the thrilling sequences with Donnie Pfaster and, like trying to get away from police and stuff. And I just think, like, the score, like, is really, has, like, an extra element of chaos in it. Mark Snow, call us. We love you.
He's always doing it right, man.
All right, well, Irresistible. Or should we close the case file on Donnie Pfaster for now? Because there's, like I said, there's a second part that we'll be investigating.
At least I know ahead of time, just...
Scully has to face this evil one more time. The one duality must face the other.
Us.
Yeah. Donnie Pfaster, he's a demon. He is the face of, hatred of women, dehumanizing hatred of women. When he's, like, confronting Scully at the end, he flips through all these different faces. And one of them looked like Charlie Manson. One of them looked like David Koresh. Like, I don't believe that it's a coincidence that they're showing us these real-life faces of this kind, of this particular breed of evil that he embodies. All right, well, thank you for joining us here on the K-Files. I'm Katie. You can find me at KMoles on social media.
And I'm Crisalia. You can find me at Crisalia on all social media. I'm coming at you from HollyRedux.com.
Thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week with a new investigation. The truth is already here.
Tune in, guys. See you later.
Thanks. Thank you for watching. Around this box, you will see many ingenious buttons. Over there, you can click to follow us on social media. Down here, you can click for more episodes like this one. Over there, you can visit our store, reduxgear.com, which has lots of cool t-shirts. And over there, hit subscribe. You know you want to. Do it for me, and do it for you. Do it for us. Namaste.